Well, we're going to get into it quickly, so I'm going to just do short refuge prayer and four measurables as our opening prayers, so we have plenty of time to talk about our subject tonight. Page 5. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soki chonam la, Shangshu badu dagni kapsu chi, dagi jinso ki pe sonamgi, jola penshir sange jupa sho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pe sem chen tam she dewa dang dewe gurdang dempa jorchi. Dug now dang du now gi gudang drawa jorchi. Dug now me pe dewa dang mi drawa jorchi. Ne ring chak dang ni dang drawe tang nam la ne pa jorchi. Okay. So we're talking about everyday consciousness and primordial awareness. So our everyday consciousness are the 8 consciousness levels to review. So I'm looking at the outline here. And right now I'm just looking at page number 1. So just as a refresher, that we're looking at our principal mind, which is our human nature mind, our human mind, our everyday consciousness, which has 8 different aspects to it. So the first 6 are our senses, our sight, our hearing, our smell, our taste, our eyes, and our touch, and the brain, the mind that is processing all of that. So those are considered the 6 unstable mind consciousnesses that we talked about last week. And they have objects. So these senses are just like a camera for our eyes. It has to see something. The eye is not actually reacting to anything. It's just sending the message of what it sees back to the brain. And it's the brain that's processing this and then putting all the different sense objects that are coming in from the sense devices and processing them into mental formations. So then we have 2 stable mind consciousnesses that are beyond this or more sophisticated. And they are processing this information now. And they are, in the first case, is the klesha mind or the affliction mind. And here's where the emotions are. This is where the I, me, mine is, where the personality is, where the ego is. So it's taking all this information now and it's making it that this is my reaction, this is my experience, this is my emotion, and so on. So, and we carry this with us, and this is our personality develops out of this. You know, all this stuff, you know, that we identify with, all the emotions, all the ego is in this klesha mind. And most people just stay in the klesha mind, and the six consciousnesses are just feeding that klesha mind. And they don't go anywhere else. They stay in that for their whole entire lifetime. They may have, because they've been taught, or they may have some kind of a yearning, some kind of a feeling that there is something beyond that. And that would be the eighth consciousness, or what's called the all-base consciousness, sometimes called the ground consciousness, sometimes called the alaya consciousness, which is kind of like the soul. When we in the West talk about the soul, that there is this this ever-present nature that we have, this spiritual nature that is what is continuing through our life and goes to our next lifetime. And in some traditions, it says it's our soul that goes and meets God. And if we have stains on our soul, God is going to reject us, or we're not going to feel that we can stand in front of God and be judged or something like that. And it's the soul that is the body, the part of the consciousness that this is relating to. So all the karma, all the actions that we do in our klesha mind get imprinted on this alaya mind, on this alaya consciousness. And even as Buddhists, we can attach to that. And we say, oh, you know, this is what, you know, when I die, this is what I take with me, is this alaya consciousness that is full of all these imprints and these stains and maybe these badges of valor, badges of good deeds that we do. And this is what I'm going to present, you know, in the bardo of reality, and be able to be accepted and say, oh, this is wonderful, or to be able to say, oh, you're not worthy and you got to go back and have another lifetime, something like that. So this is something that we hold on to. And this is part of what we call the extreme of eternalism, that we hold on to this alaya consciousness like a soul. You know, when we recognize our absolute true nature, we see that this is nothing more than a concept itself. So it's our holding on to it that, you know, keeps us in this continuum. And if we can liberate ourselves from it, then we can abide in true reality, in the absolute reality, and become a Buddha, become a enlightened being. So in order to be able to do that, we have to have purified ourselves to the degree that we can see, you know, what those stains are, what those badges of valor are, and that we're not holding on to those things. That's how we liberate ourselves from this alaya consciousness. It's not just saying, oh, I don't believe in the soul. It's that we purify that which the soul is charged with holding on to or having aversion to. So by understanding these 8 consciousnesses, and in particular the klesha consciousness and the alaya consciousness, is very important, very subtle, very, very fundamental in our being able to liberate ourselves from our ordinary human nature so that we can begin to really recognize and be able to display the primordial consciousness or the primordial awareness. And this primordial awareness is that true nature, is that Buddha nature that we have within ourselves. So this comes through, this is there, it's already there, but it's blocked up. It's blocked up with the klesha. It's blocked up with the alaya. It's blocked up with our attachments and our aversions. So when we begin to remove those things, when we begin to cleanse ourselves from these things, purify from these things, then the light of the primordial awareness starts coming through. We start seeing it. We start recognizing it. Does that make sense? I mean, that's a very fundamental point in understanding that we have that already. So, without going into a lot of detail, we could spend the next 4 or 5 weeks talking about, you know, the minutia of detail that is in this outline that comes from this book. But I want to go to page 6 because I want to now identify more of what this primordial awareness is. So we learn to recognize it. We've talked about it before, but not in these terms. So we're going to look at it more in a practical way, how it helps us. So these are the 5 kinds of primordial awareness. If you see this page, everybody have this page? Okay. Okay. So here it says, the true nature, the 5 kinds of primordial awareness, the true nature, the primordial awareness, the jhana, the clear light that knows the nature of reality as it is. So it sees things without any judgment. It sees things without any predilections, without any colorations. It just sees things clearly. So what that means is it sees phenomenal nature as being clear. It sees the dualistic nature that is present in phenomenal nature. But at the same time, in seeing that, it is transcendent of the dualism. It sees the dualism, but it's not subject to the dualism. It's easier to see it with someone else than it is for ourselves. You know, we can, it's easy for us to judge somebody else and to be able to say, oh, you're doing this, oh, you're doing that, oh, you're being dualistic. But for us, it's very hard for us to have that objectivity to be able to recognize that within ourselves. So all this is a means to be able to help us to accept that and begin to recognize that, to be able to look at ourselves in a much more objective way. So this clear light, is a term that can mean Mahamudra, can mean Dzogchen, can mean the great perfection, can mean Rigpa, can mean enlightenment. All these different terms are talking about that clear light, talking about this seeing nature as it is, and being and seeing that we are part of that, that it is flowing through us, that we are part of it, we are indistinguishable with it. And that all beings, all our brothers and sisters, all sentient beings, everything that we see is the same way.
Lance,
Yes, sir.
I do have a quick question. So when we're talking about clear light, is this like that we are able to see a clear light, or is this more like a metaphor for being able to see the real nature of things?
It's a
Or both?
metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
So it's not necessarily like you're sitting in meditation and boom, all of a sudden you see this bright light, but it's more like see the nature of
Right.
things.
So we're gonna, it'll take on more meaning as we get along a little bit more in this discussion tonight. But yes, it's seeing with your heart. It's seeing with your heart mind. It's not like seeing with your eyes.
Right.
So it's a metaphor. Remember, everything that we do, all the communication that we have is conceptual. So that's all that we have to be able to communicate with ourselves and with each other. So we got to use these similes. We have to use these concepts to be able to understand things that are non-conceptual. So the clear light, it's a light that you can see in the darkness and the ignorance, and it's completely clear. It's completely unfettered with any judgments or predilections to any skewing or anything like that.
Okay. So that is not to be confused like with any type of meditational experiences that you might have, like might be able to see some brain activity, the chakras, lights and stuff like that. It's nothing to
But
do.
you can have glimpses of the clear light. You have glimpses of it, but you may not recognize it as that. You may not know enough to be able to put that together at this point.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Because we have this within ourselves. I mean, we're spiritual beings, whether we want to, recognize it or not. We're doing spiritual things all the time. We just don't recognize it as that. Okay, so back to the text. So this is the primordial awareness of the Dharma Dhatu. So we've talked about that. The Dharma Dhatu is like the Buddha field. It's like the mind of the Buddha that pervades all others. It's all pervading awareness of phenomena. It sees all phenomena, but it is that which is the space around phenomena. So here's a simile. So if we take phenomena and let's say everything that we know, everything that we recognize, all our wisdom, all our knowledge, all our experience is all related, is all relative. It's all related. And this is all the phenomenal nature. And we say that this is empty of its own true nature. That everything is compounded. Everything is bouncing off of other things, and we are experiencing these things and evaluating these things based on what it is and what it isn't, and all these things that are relative. None of this exists on its own. We're taking all of this and say, okay, here's a sphere with all of this in that. Okay? And this sphere is like suspended in this space. And this space is beyond our comprehension. But this space has materialized this phenomenal nature, has materialized this sphere. We don't even know why. We don't know how it was done. It's a simile. But there is this space that this phenomenal nature is suspended in. So the relative nature is this phenomenal nature. The absolute nature is this indescribable space. So this is a simile for us to be able to understand where things, in our human way, where things are. We're making sort of a relative statement, but it's beyond the relative because we're looking at it as space. And here's this stuff just in here. We don't know how it got here. We don't know why it's here, but it's something that we have to deal with as being in the phenomenal nature. When we get into the space, then it doesn't matter to us. It matters to us because we're always trying to identify what all that stuff is. But when you get into the space, you say, so what? Who knows what we think? Who knows what is there to think about? There may be different dimensions of being and so on that we don't recognize.
Hey, Lance, is it then, so it's imagined as a sphere, or the simile is a sphere, that the phenomenal world is hanging in. Does the sphere then imply that there's boundaries?
Yes.
So there's a way to get out of that where there's only space, and then that's boundless.
Well, that's what we're exploring.
So yeah, we would.
And I'm going to take it one step. I got to take it one step further.
Okay.
I got to take it one step further. I use the example of a sphere, but in the scriptures, it is explained more as a tetrahedron, just to blow your mind a little bit.
Okay. I need a picture of one of those.
You know what a tetrahedron is?
I know what it is. I don't know what it looks like.
It's like a David star, right?
Huh?
Like a David star?
Well, that's two tetrahedrons.
That's the double tetrahedron.
That's two tetrahedrons that are interlocked with each other.
Right.
A tetrahedron is a three-dimensional triangle. You know what an equilateral triangle is?
So it's a pyramid.
No, a pyramid is four sides.
Well, a pyramid. What, can a pyramid be three sides?
No, because a pyramid is four sides. It's a base with four sides.
Okay.
It's important to get these things, right. This is part of our, investigation.
So on Google, it says it's a polyhedron composed of four triangular faces, 6 straight edges, and 4 vertex corners.
Okay. So you take 2 sets of those and interlock them, and then you've got what we call the Star of David.
Yeah.
and what that implies, what the Star of David is, what is it symbolic of, is our phenomenal nature.
Yeah, I think what they were saying is that when they're breaking stuff down, they seal that pattern into all sorts of stuff, rocks, minerals, and it's pretty fundamental to a lot of things. So it's basically how the macrocosmos is shaped out of, as well as the microcosmos is.
The microcosm and the macrocosm.
Thank you.
So we could imagine that one of the pyramids is the space, and the other pyramid is the phenomenal world imbued within the space.
No. The Star of David now becomes an example of the dualism. That here's one set of ways of looking at things, and here's the other set of ways of looking at things, and they're interlocked. What are you talking to yourself, Michael?
Yeah, yeah.
He's just Michael is saying, I'm going to get that, David.
I'm gonna keep my microphone off unless it's urgent. So never mind.
All right, so try not to dwell on this right now, but it's just, something to put in the mix of contemplation.
So could it be an appearance of what we might think of as when appearance meets emptiness?
No, emptiness is appearance. I mean, yes, appearance is emptiness. That's all relative. That's all the phenomenal nature.
Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form.
Right.
And it's a double tetrahedron.
The double tetrahedron.
I'm going to get that,
as
David.
Explained as a simile. As a simile,
That David put us into that situation. Why is it called David's star? I never knew.
Star David?
Yes.
I don't know. Do we have a Hebrew scholar among us anywhere? I don't know if it came from King David, David and Goliath. I don't know if it came from him, from his time. I don't know. But it is interesting. And the Kabbalah, I don't know enough about the Kabbalah. I've studied it a little bit, but I don't know much about its origin and some of the symbology there, So I don't know. It wouldn't be difficult to find out if you wanted to research it.
I was just, curious.
Just Google the Star of David and see what comes up. But that's for another time. We don't have we don't have to spend time talking about that now. So I was just trying to make a little bit more of a finer point of this simile of what this phenomenal nature is in the midst of all this space. The space is indefinable for us. But we're always trying to define the phenomenal nature within that. And we're not very interested in the space, although we should be, because that's where the peace of mind is. The mind is all totally involved in the phenomenal nature. And if you can let go of the mind, then you now experience the space. So back to the text now. So being able to understand this, to put this now into a context of that this is the all-pervading awareness that recognizes this, that is part of this, is all-pervading, that the space is actually permeating the phenomenal nature. But we don't recognize it that way. We look at it as being separate, but it is inseparable.
It's kind of like how water is inseparable from being wet.
Okay. So there is this all-pervading quality about this nature. Then there is this mirror-like primordial awareness of this nature, this mirror-like primordial nature. What that means is that if you're in the space, if you are the space, you recognize the phenomenal, but you see it all just as appearance, just as emptiness, as being non-existent. It's only in the mind. And the mind is non-existent. The mind is phenomenal. So this space, remember, is the primordial awareness of enlightenment, of Mahamudra, of the Buddha, etc. So it's all pervading and it's mirror-like. And it is the awareness, the primordial awareness of equality, the sameness of duality. It is the wisdom of equanimity, of seeing all things as being the same. Now, how do we define that? Is beyond our comprehension again. We have all these conventions that we try and use to explain oneness. But that misses the point too. So now we've got all pervading, we've got appearances, we've got equanimity. Now we got equanimity. And now we also have discriminating primordial awareness. Discriminating primordial awareness, clear perception. Being able to recognize all the permutations of all this, but not being bound by the permutations of this. Discriminating awareness, the wisdom of discriminating awareness. So we've got that too. So that's number 4. The number 5 is primordial awareness that accomplishes all actions, all accomplishing activities. All actions can be performed. Our current behavior is the cause for that. We can just abide in space and just be the accomplishment of Rigpa. Or we can manifest into the phenomenal, and all the causes, karma, and results begin to manifest. And we are controlling those. So it's all accomplishing wisdom. It's recognizing the absolute nature to be able to remain completely free and to maintain that freedom, even though it is involved in the relative. These are the 5 things. These are the 5 Buddha families now. So now we need to understand, to relate these. So this is the genius of the Buddha, is being able to take these very abstract, esoteric concepts for our benefit so that we can begin to try and understand something. Okay? All this stuff that we're learning, ultimately, we have to let go, because what it does, it binds us to all these now mental ideas that we've just painted for ourselves. But remember, the space is complete freedom. The peace of mind is complete freedom. If we can bring that complete freedom into the phenomenal nature, well, that's part of our work as Buddha, as Bodhisattva.
So, Lance, how do you do that? Maintaining Rigpa while you are still in the phenomenal nature.
All right. Well,
And
let's carry on. Let's carry on to the next step.
okay.
All right, because we're still defining things. We're still trying to understand things. Okay. So the question you ask is a very good question, but it's going to be answered as we move to the next few steps and being able to understand this. So to help us to understand this, we've got the 5 Buddha families. We have the 5 meditational Buddhas. We have the Sambhogagaya. We're going to understand, we're going to look at what the Sambhogagaya is. Okay? Everything we've been talking about is is Dharmakaya. Okay? Now we're looking at Sambhogagaya, which gives us the ability now to be able to create forms from the formless. But these forms are mental images. Okay? So this all-pervading consciousness, this all-pervading wisdom is named Varanchana, the Buddha Varanchana. So let me see here. Excuse me 1 second. Get the page. If we go to page 9 in the outline now. Okay, so now you're seeing another way of explaining these 5 Buddha families. So we see the primordial awareness in the column on the left side of the page. And it's defined in the way that I just related to you in the past 10 minutes or so. So the first heading here is the primordial awareness of the Dharma Dhatu that pervades all others. And the Buddha is Varanchana. That's the name of that. The one who completely manifests, all pervading. Okay? So for right now, let's not go too deep in this. Let's stay and try and get these 5 together. But I'll take it to one step further and be able to say that it's white light. That Varanchana is white light. Okay? Hold that in your mind. You can make a note. White light is Varanchana. Then, the next one was the mirror-like primordial awareness. And the Buddha is Ascobia, the unshakable one. The mirror-like primordial awareness. And this for me was really the most difficult to understand. That it's like looking at a mirror and seeing everything like a mirror, seeing everything as just an appearance. It's not the mirror that we're looking at. It's the image of the mirror, the image that's in the mirror, and that is not real. But we think it's real. We want to think it's real. So if we look at things, no mirror now, but I'm just opening up my eyes and I'm looking around, I'm saying, oh, all these are appearances, just as if I'm looking into a mirror. And this is mastered. This is the perfection of Ascobia, the Buddha, the unshakable one, because Ascobia recognizes this and is completely steadfast in this. And this is the color blue. So then we go to the next one, which is the primordial awareness of equality or equanimity, all things being the same, all things being in a balance. You know, the balance is shifting in phenomenal nature, but in Dharma Dhatu, and it's just all the same. And this is the source of preciousness, right? So this is typified. This is the perfection of Ratnasambhava, the Buddha Ratnasambhava. So Ratnasambhava, Ratna means a jewel, and Sambhava means born. So what it means is like the earth. So it's completely steadfast, or excuse me, wrong word. It sees all things as being the same, all things as being the jewel.
Are we back at page 28?
No, we're back on page 9.
Okay, thanks.
So this is identified by the color yellow. Okay, now the next one is discriminating primordial awareness. Discriminating primordial awareness. Being able to see all the different myriad, ways in which this is manifest, including the spaciousness. But this is the perfection, to be able to recognize that. This is the perfection of Buddha Amitabha. This is Buddha Amitabha, the infinite light. You see that? And this is the color red. And now the last one is the primordial awareness that accomplishes all. It's able to move about in all this and accomplish whatever it wishes. This is the perfection of accomplishment. And this is the Buddha Amagoga Siddhi. Perfect accomplishment. Siddhi means accomplishment. And this is the color green, the one who accomplishes what is meaningful. One who accomplishes what is meaningful, not frivolity. Because all these Buddhas are pure virtue. What we might call pure virtue. They are the perfection of virtue and non-virtue. So that they cease becoming they cease becoming dualistic, they become non-dual. So this is the color green. So having said this now, what does this remind you of? Anybody want to take a shot at this?
Mandala?
Is the 5 Buddha families or the lights that we look for in the Bardo?
Okay. What else?
Mandala.
Okay. What else?
A rainbow.
Okay. What else? Something you might see almost every day.
Traffic light.
Well, close. How about prayer flags?
Yeah.
Children, come hither, please.
So we're seeing the 5 Buddha families everywhere. And this is, remember, this is all pervasive. This is everywhere. This is in the relative. So we begin to recognize these 5 Buddha families that are manifest in the phenomenal nature. And so these colors, you see, become indicative of our meditational explorations and experiences. We begin to experience white, blue, yellow, red, green. We see it with our heart. We begin to experience it that way. So we can look at it as light, but there's a name associated with it. And then there's a phrase that is associated with it. There's language that's associated with it. There's intellectualism that is associated with this. And it's not strange that if you take white light and you pass it through a prism, through a crystal, that you will see the spectrum. You will see these colors, right? So it's not a coincidence that these colors have, been brought to our attention like this. It's part of our phenomenal nature that is a display of the absolute nature, the space that is unconceptual, non-conceptual. So we're making more pieces fit together.
So Lance, would it be correct to say that these are all a part of us and that we just need to get in touch with them?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we are all that. So now let's relate that to the levels of consciousness that we were talking about on page 1. So if we use this chart that is on page 9 and we carry over to now the 4th column, so we see that Varanchana, the white light, the all-pervading wisdom, is what transforms the all-base consciousness, which is the Alaya consciousness, which is another way, and the obscuration there is ignorance or delusion, that we think the soul is real. Eternalism. So likewise, if we go to the all base now with hatred and aggression, we see that it is Ascobia, the unshakable one, the mirror-like wisdom of seeing all things as appearances, transforms the attachment or the aversions created from hatred. And then next is Ratnasambhava, the source of preciousness, or the primordial awareness of equality, of equanimity, transforms the klesha mind, the ego mind, the I, me, mine mind, of pride and greed. And then the discriminating primordial awareness of Amitabha, the infinite light, transformed the mind consciousness. The mind consciousness is the 6th consciousness that is taking all these inputs from the eyes, the senses, and so on, and is processing that. So now Amitabha says, I'm going to decide what I'm going to look at. I'm going to decide what I pay attention to. I'm not going to lead this stuff lead me around like a ring on my nose. When we smell something, how it interrupts us. If we see something, how it interrupts us. If we hear something, how it interrupts us. If we touch something, how it interrupts us. If we taste something, how it interrupts us. What is it interrupting? Our peace of mind. So then last is the primordial awareness that accomplishes all actions. And the perfection is Amagoga Siddhi, the one who accomplishes what is meaningful. And it is transforming or purifying the 5 sense consciousnesses. That we're going to cut off the process of the 6th consciousness, the mind, by simply not being able to be attached to that which we see, that which we feel, that which we smell, and so on like that. We do it at that level. So all this is all intermingled. This is all a whole lot of experience. Remember when we talked a few weeks ago, we were talking about the 12 links of interdependent origination. So now we're learning how to master that and how to be able to cut off our attachments and our aversions to all of this through these 5 perfection Buddhas, through these 5 lights. And what happens as we become more adept in our meditations, we begin to experience the meditation, not with all these names. It doesn't matter whether we say Ascobia or we say this or that or call it something else. These are all just temporary names that culturally we've given to these things. We begin to see these things, we begin to experience these things as light. And lo and behold, when we learn about the Bardo Todo and everything is experienced as light. Everything is defined as light. So consider it another language. It's the language of the heart. And the mind is learning to interpret that. The little mind is learning to incorporate that into its process. The clear light now is being transcendent of all of that, is seeing all this all now coming together in clarity. The 3 qualities of Mahamudra is clarity, emptiness, and unimpededness. So we're just taking these intellectual building blocks now. We're defining these things. And what each of us has to do on our own is contemplate these things. We have to take things apart. All our knowledge, all our experience, take these things apart and then put them back together again. But put them back together more simply, just by virtue of being able to look at these things now with these new ways of analyzing, of analysis, of looking at things spiritually. And as we do that, then we begin to develop, cultivate our Buddha field, our Buddha mind, our experience as being Buddha, first as a bodhisattva. And this is what we talk about being on the path. This is how we move along that meditation. I forget exactly how Adrian phrased the question 20 or 30 minutes ago, but this is the answer.
What was the question, Adrian?
The question was, how do you maintain, hold on, let me remember. How do you maintain the state of Rigpa while still being in the relative, I think.
This is it, what I just said. We become more aware of the spirituality of things in the midst of phenomenal nature more than the phenomenal nature itself. So the analogy of being lost in the trees, we spend more time up above the canopy of the trees than we do being on the ground.
That's true. I vouch for that.
Huh?
I said I vouch for that, yes.
With our monkey minds.
Yeah. Is that a good simile?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And we do it gradually. It is a progressive system. So we couldn't talk about this if you just came in for the first time into Dharma Surya and said, well, teach me something about Dharma. We couldn't talk about this to most people, right? You got to have the background of all these other things to be able to get to this point. And of course, there's more stuff after this, but it's all interconnected. It gets easier, it gets simpler, you know, and the more that we contemplate this, the more that we have the experience of this, and we realize it as to what Bhavani said, that we recognize that this is us. And it's completely natural. And all these pieces start fitting together much easier. We begin to recognize that 2,000 piece jigsaw puzzle and those interior pieces now, we see them coming together much easier. So these 5 Buddha families are the basis of the deity yoga. And the deity yoga is the hallmark of the Vajrayana. This is the wisdom of the Buddha. So the more that we understand this, the more we begin to understand the bodhisattvas, the more we begin to understand the wrathful deities, the peaceful deities, all these things, we start seeing how they fit together more and more and more and more. Easier, 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 easier. The doubts begin to go away and so on, because we see it all within ourselves. We see it as just expressions of ourselves. Or maybe it's better to say, we are expressions of that. We are the manifestations of that in our behavior and so on. Our body, speech, and mind, may my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Okay, so now let's turn the page and go to page 10. Now, some of you might have a color and some of you might just be black and white, so forgive that. But if we go to this page here and we begin to look at this now in terms of the Buddhas and the 4 kinds of enlightened activities, how is it that they are doing what they are doing? So the first one listed in the symbol family is the chakra family, is the Buddha family, is Varanchana. And this is the white family. So the color there is just perfect white. And this is the basis, the origin of all enlightened activity. This is the Buddha family. And the achievement is giving rise to all the 4 kinds of enlightened activities. So this is like the basis. Like we are the working basis of our human nature. You know, chapter 2 of the Jewel Ornamental Liberation, the working basis. So here's the working basis of the Buddha family is Vairocana. And when we learn the 7 posture of Vairocana, it's not by coincidence that we're learning of Vairocana, because he's like the chief Buddha, meditational Buddha. So then now the next one is Ascobia. Ascobia is able to overcome, if we go back to, if we go back to the preceding page, page 9, and we go back that we are transforming hatred and aggression, we're doing that through pacifying. Go back to page 10. Pacifying. And this is blue. That whole row there should be blue. You may see it as a gray, as a medium gray or something, but it should be a blue to indicate that that's the blue family. So it says the achievement is the self-expression of completely purified anger. The self-expression of completely purified anger. So what does that mean, self-expression? You know, sometimes the word self, you know, that gets a little bit confusing. You know, it comes from the book, you know, but what it means is replace the word self with ascobia. It becomes the ascobia expression of completely purified anger. And ascobia is a part of us. We begin to express ourselves in these 5 Buddha families. In these 5, there is a part of all of us that is ascobia. There's a part of all of us that is Vairocana and Ratnasambhava and all them. It's not that there's a quarter, there's a wedge here. It's all a holon. It's all intermingled with each other. They're all touching each other. It's all interdependent origination. It is the 12 links of dependent origination. Then the next one is Ratnasambhava, and the enlightened activity is increasing or enrichment. And that color is yellow. And this is the self-expression of completely purified pride or greed. Greed and pride go together. And then the next one is Amitabha, is empowering, the self-expression of completely purified, desirous attachment. So empowering, you know, another word for that would be magnetizing. And that's self-expression of completely purified, desirous attachment. And that's red. And then the next one is Amagog City. And his enlightened activity is wrathful, the self-expression of completely purified jealousy or envy. Wrathful. And what this wrathful means, wrathful, I never like the word wrathful very much because it always has a hateful connotation to it in my mind. But fierce, I think, is better. It is fierce compassion. It is fierce method. It is fierce, skillful means. So it's fierce activity. It's really engaging. You know, it's engaging. It's digging things out. It's not being satisfied with the rationalization. it's digging deeper into the cause of the rationalization.
What's the word in Tibetan for wrathful?
I don't know. Maybe I've heard it, but I can't think of it right now. I don't know.
Just curious.
Yeah, it's a good, fair enough question. So now we're making these associations with the 5 Buddha families, who the heads of the families are, the color representations of those families, and the activities of those families, and the achievement of those families. Then there's more stuff here. You can read the meaning. There's more stuff there. You can get the book and read the book. Okay. All right. Let's look at page 12. Page 12 now. Now we're going to introduce the consort, the feminine aspect of the meditation mind, of the Sambhogagaya. We've been talking about the 5 male Buddhas, which represent skillful means. The wisdom behind the skillful means is the feminine, the consort. So each one of these 5 Buddhas has a consort that is the wisdom aspect. So here we're looking, we see the family. So we see, we haven't gone into those names yet. That's not as important right now. But the male Buddhas, we see Ascobia, and it's blue. That row is blue. His male expression is pure anger, meaning he's purifying anger. The female Buddha is Mamaki, and she is the water element. She represents the water element. And the benefit is cohesion. This is what we need to get to, is to understand these benefits of the activities, of the enlightened activities. If you have anger, and anger is made up of lots of different particles, lots of different things are making this anger. And you know, this comes and happens, oh, I absorb that. And this comes and happens, oh, I absorb that. And this comes and happens, and I absorb that. But then this other thing comes, and all of a sudden, it's just too much and it breaks. And the anger comes spilling out. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know, we can't hold anything more. So the water is the element of the female, of the wisdom. Let's just pass water over this problem. Let's just purify it with water. And as we do that, it's smoothing out. If you take a rock and you pass water over it, you come back in a couple thousand years and that rock with all those rough edges is now going to be smooth. And what's happened is the water that has come downstream from that rock is now holding all those rough edges in the water. It's invisible to us. Or it may be so thick it becomes muddy. Could be that. But the point is that it becomes cohesive, that which was an obstacle is now cohesive in this element of water. So that's the benefit of water, is that it's cohesive. It can hold things. So we need to be able to do that from a practical standpoint. You know, there are things that are happening to us while we're on the path. And if we're reacting, if we're breaking every time one of these things happens, we're never going to get to the next phase, to the next stage. We have to carry some of this with us. We have to be cohesive with some of this stuff. So then we go on to the next one, is Ratnasambhava. Here we have pride. And here the female Buddha's name is Lokana. It's the yellow family. And now we have the element. She represents the element earth. And what we need here is stability. The benefit is stability to be able to overcome, or excuse me here. To overcome pridefulness and greediness. Pridefulness and greediness. So the earth. So the earth, you know, it typifies our riches. Here, I got this diamond. This diamond makes me a wealthy person. And I have a lot of pride in that. And I'm not going to share this diamond. I'm not going to give it to somebody to cut this diamond up and give it to every one of you and so on. I'm going to be greedy and I'm going to hold this. But if I can feel stable within myself, this doesn't create the stability. This becomes the problem. And I can give this away and it doesn't affect my stability. So the earth represents that stability. There's plenty more. Everything that we need, we've got on this planet. Everything we need as human beings, we've got on this planet. Everybody could be fed. There doesn't need to be any hunger. We've got everything we need. We've got all the energy that we need. All these things. It's just being hoarded by those that can hoard it for what? Their own aggrandizement for one reason or another. So the earth represents that stability. And the female Buddha, in this case, Lokana, represents that. So if you look at that now this female element is wisdom. The water is wisdom. I'm going to wear this problem down. I'm going to stabilize by increasing or enriching that which is my activity to stabilize myself. I'm going to stabilize, I'm going to increase my knowledge. I'm going to increase my skillful means. So then the next one is Amitabha, the red family. And the female is Pandara. Pandara Vasini is the name. And it's the fire. It's the element fire is the wisdom. And the fire produces heat. And the heat is ripening. So in this case, we can use the analogy of a garden. You know, and if the sunshine is there and you plant the seed in the ground, you're getting the nutrients from the earth, enriching the seed so that it grows. You've watered it, you've given it, you know, the water that it needs to be able to grow and so on. And now you bring the sun, the heat, the warmth, now it's going to ripen and it's going to start germinating and it's going to grow a stem and it's going to break the ground and it's going to and it's going to become a flower, it's going to become some fruit or something like that. So it's the ripening from the heat. So our heat, our body heat, comes from our furnace. Our furnace is breaking down the food that we eat. It's a natural process. We have a fire inside of ourselves. That's where our heat comes from, is from our digestion. So it's ripening, it's giving us energy. That heat is a form of energy. So then the next one is Amagoga City, and his female Buddha is Tara. This is Samaya Tara is her full name, and she represents the wind element. And the wind is movement, locomotion. And if you remember that Amagoga City is seeking into things, sorry. I can't think of the word right now. Is impenetrable, not impenetrable, is continues to go on. Nothing stops it. You know, it can go anywhere it wants to go. So it has this movement, is what's being implied here by the wind. And the wind itself can wear down obstacles. You know, you can have, a mountain, and through a gazillion years of the wind blowing, that mountain begins to break apart and so on. And then maybe the rain comes, the water comes and washes it down. And then that silt then becomes more fertile earth. And then waiting for the sun to come and more seeds grow. And then the wind comes to move the seeds around and so on. So we see it's all part of this interconnectedness. And then Varanchana now, the white family, is his consort is Datvishvari, is her name, and she represents the space element. And this is the growth potential. So this isn't the space that we talk about, the Dharma Dhatu. This is just the space that is within phenomenal nature that allows us to grow. That we're not, in a box, and our growth is going to be stunted by the dimensions of the box that we are in. So in a garden, if you plant the seed and so on, and then you're doing all the things to make that thing grow, but then you go and put a box over top of it, then whatever was going to grow isn't going to grow very much. You're going to stunt it. So the space is allowing it to come to its full maturation growth. So the feminine, the female now, represents that wisdom to manifest those activities, to allow those benefits to manifest. Any comments? Questions?
Is there any reason the females were listed in a slightly different order than the male Buddhas?
Well, I no, I don't know. When I put this together, it might have been that I was taking it in order of the elements.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why I would have done that. That would make more sense to me. That I was trying to explain the elements, so I wanted that to be in the proper order for that.
Amoga City was green. Is that right?
Amagoga City is green, yes.
Right.
So sometimes you will see Mamaki and Lokana switched. And it depends on the practice. So we shouldn't get hung up on the names, but the meaning and the is what's important here. The names can be cultural. The names can be interpreted from a particular temple or a particular monastery or a particular teaching or something like that. There may be some other factor that's involved, but here we're looking at it in a basic order that is expressed in the 5 Buddha families, that is taught in the 5 Buddha families.
So Lance, when you say they switch,
Yes.
It's not like in terms of trade partners or anything like that. It's
just the name switch.
Uh-huh.
You know, so Lokana becomes Mamaki, Mamaki becomes Lokana, but the element remains the same, the color remains the same. It's just, you know, some idiosyncrasies of some of the teachings.
What might be some of these teachings where the female deities are?
Bardo Todal in particular.
The Bardo Todal.
Bardo Todal switches Lokana and Mamaki.
Okay.
Well, again, I'm not that great a scholar to be able to have spent the time to dig into the reasons for this. There might be a very logical reason for it, but it hasn't come to me yet. Maybe you can discover it. But the name, you know, it just goes to the point. The names are all relative. All this is just the means to be able to understand some things in our human nature so that we can let it all go. It is crazy to do that. But if we don't, then these are the things that hold us back. But they disguise themselves as our emotions, as other things. And we don't have the understanding to be able to liberate from them. So we wind up being reborn again. We don't undo we don't have the mechanism to undo our emotions. We get trapped in them. So we got to understand how they work so that when they do come up, we know how to fix them.
Lance,
Practical. Yeah, Tom.
Ultimately, there is no dharma, right?
Dharma is a concept.
Exactly. But that's ways and means that we have developed to put labels and to put to make meaning or give meaning to what we're doing.
Well, the Buddha. This was the genius of the Buddha.
But ultimately, that we need to let all that go.
Yes.
We need to let all this go.
Yes.
And we're using words basically to help us comprehend the uncomprehendable, basically.
Yes. Well, to be able to abide in the uncomprehendable.
But ultimately, isn't this leading to something more than just enlightenment? Isn't that just almost like seems like almost a gateway to something more?
Maybe so.
And I mean, enlightenment, I mean, Buddha is a label that we put on.
Well, I've had that thought, you know, and, you know, that, you know, we talk about dimensions. I mean, we see things in, you know, we experience things just in 3 dimensions, but what's to say that there's not 4, 5, 6, 16 dimensions? I've read books, Buddhist books that talk about that. So yeah, so does Buddha become a gateway to that which is beyond our comprehension? So why do we try and fuss about comprehending it when it's incomprehensible? Just experience it is enough. If you want to keep chasing it, you're holding on. You're going to find obstacles. You're going to develop aversions. You put yourself right back in the hole.
Well, we keep wanting to talk about it because, you know, it's the one concept leads to another, which leads to another. And it's just we love to categorize, and duality, you know, we slice everything in half in order to try and understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's our folly.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to understand this a little bit better when we start doing the Noble Film Night. Because when we hear some of these interviews with some of these masters who are gone, but they were recorded, videotaped, and so on, and we start seeing these stories and experiencing those and so on, it'll bring it more to life for us, or animate these ideas more for us and help us. So it's going to be very exciting. You're really going to enjoy it.
I mean, you listen to some of these great masters, and you know they tell you ultimately, I'm a liar. I'm not telling you anything. Investigate it for yourself.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is a grapefruit. Don't take my word that this is a grapefruit. Chop it in half. Open it up. Taste it. Smell it.
Yeah.
Find out for yourself.
Yeah, that's it. It's got to be experienced. What's got to be experienced? That which is uncomprehensible needs to be experienced. That which is non-conceptual, unfabricated, that's what needs to be experienced. Then we see the emptiness of all this. Yeah. And everything just automatically falls into place. And for a space and time, you got it, man. Whoa. Now I understand. Everything falls into place. And then it begins to fade. But then we go back up again. We go back in meditation and so on. And we get there again. You know, but then it fades. So the goal is to be able to get there so you're like that all the time. But then you get interrupted. You know, people want to know what you know. And you want to be a nice guy. You want to say, oh, get out of my way, you know, but so that becomes part of the balance. That becomes part of what we do as bodhisattvas, to how to maintain our stability while at the same time helping other beings. These are the sages in the 6 realms of human consciousness. I hope you're seeing the interconnection of things a little bit more. So dauntless, that was, so if we go to, mine doesn't have a page number here. I don't know why. If you look at the back of the book, the back of the text that I sent you, is there a 3 pages at the back, and one of them is labeled the 5 peaceful male and female Buddhas. Do you have that? Okay. Is there a page number on there? It should be the 3rd from the back. Do you all have that? Okay, you got it?
Yeah, that would be 15.
Maybe so.
No, 13, 14. Yeah, it would be 14, 15, and 16.
But the title of that page is called The 5 Peaceful Male and Female Buddhas.
That's the last page, yeah.
Okay. So here is a summation of what we've been talking about. And there's another aspect to this that I would like to talk about, but there's not enough time, and that is with the bodhisattvas. So I think next week we'll continue this conversation talking about the bodhisattvas. What? Oh, next week we're off. Yeah, all right. Well then, let's finish what I'm talking about right now. So let's go to this page where it says the 5 peaceful male and female Buddhas. So now there's 5 Buddha families. So the first family is called the Buddha family. This is the white family. The Buddha, the male Buddha, is Vairocana. His color is, he radiates a blue light, but yet his body is a white light. Another one of the little things that keeps you on your toes. The more important point is that the poison that Vairocana works with is delusion, is lies. You see that? And the antidote or the method to overcome that delusion, those lies, which are ignorance, is teaching, education. The symbol that is associated with Vairocana or the Buddha family is the chakra wheel. The chakra wheel is the Buddha family. The 8-spoke wheel. His consort is Akasa Datvishvari. We just talked about her. And the wisdom is all-pervading wisdom. So then we go down to the next row. The family is the Vajra family. So the Vajra, you know, the Vajra is, this is the Vajra, this is the symbol. It's like a lightning bolt. And so that's the symbol. It is the blue family. Vajrasattva Ascobia is the full name of this Buddha. Vajrasattva Ascobia. We break out Vajrasattva is sometimes called the 6th Buddha family. Here is 5, but sometimes in some practices, the way we look at it, the Vajrasattva becomes a 6th Buddha family. So we'll explain that another time. But here, Ascobia, he radiates white light. He's got a blue body, but he radiates white light. And I'll explain that later too. The poison that he overcomes is hatred and aggression. And he does it through mindfulness, being aware that it is something that is fabricated in the mind, that it's like looking into a mirror. There's nothing there except this reflection, and we're getting all upset about that reflection. So it's being mindful of that is how we overcome that hatred, aggression. The symbol is the Dorje Vajra. A Dorje, this is the Tibetan name of a Vajra. The Vajra is a Sanskrit name. And the consort is Lokana, and the wisdom is mirror-like wisdom. And we go down to the next family is the Ratna family, and the Buddha is Ratnasambhava. So Ratna means jewel. There's a jewel, is a Sanskrit word that means jewel. And so Sambhava means born. So it's born as a jewel. The color is yellow. The poison that he overcomes is greed and pride, and does it through generosity. The symbol is the jewel or the ratna. In Tibetan, the word is norbu. That's the Tibetan word for jewel, is norbu. His consort is Mamaki, and it's the wisdom of equanimity. And then the next family is the Padma family, which means lotus, is the Sanskrit word for lotus. Amitabha is the male, the color red. deals with the poison of desire and attachment. And the antidote is meditation, is being able to withdraw and be able to become transcendent of that fiery passion that comes from desire. The symbol is the lotus, Padma, and in Tibetan it's Pema. The word is Pema. And the consort is Pandara, and the wisdom is discriminating awareness. And then the last is the Karma family, and the Buddha is Amagoga Siddha. The color is green. The poison is jealousy and envy. And the antidote is being fearless. It's being dauntless, unimpeded. That was the word I was looking for before. Unimpeded, dauntless, fearless. And the symbol is the double dorje, the Vishra Vajra. So it's taking two of these together like this. If you can see that, it's called a Vishra Vajra. And it means action, or it means motion, activity. So it's taking this wisdom, this means wisdom, and this is putting wisdom into motion. So you'll see, the teachers, and you'll see books, that have this the Vishwavaja emblem on it, and you'll see it on the thrones of the lineage of the masters and so on, of the teachers and so on. The Vishwavaja is used in education and so on to be able to show that. The consort is Tara, and the wisdom is the all-accomplishing wisdom. So I think for tonight, I think that's enough for tonight. We can talk some more, but I think to introduce the bodhisattvas at this time is too much. We'll save that for the next meeting. Everybody seems to be having stuff seeping out of all their orifices right now.
I do.
So what do you think of this? Tell me. Adrian, you were first to bring up, how do we do this? Does this begin to give you a sense of the path?
Yeah, every time we're talking about the Buddha families, the colors, and the correspondence with the practice and how this is interrelated, I'm just kind of like a moth drawn into the light for that for some reason. So it makes a lot of sense to me. It brings a lot of the symbolism and meaning together with the practice, and it's good. I love it. And it's not just like at the conceptual level, but also it seems like it would manifest through the practice.
It's visceral.
Right.
Michael was just,
yeah.
You can feel it.
I started reading.
So I got to ask you a question. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why does it seem that way to you?
I got to think about it.
Because we've all been there.
Yeah.
Where were you before you were born? You were born in the midst of all this reality, all this truth, all this wisdom. And then we were born and we forgot it all. And now we're putting it back together again. So this is our true nature. This is what nature is. This is our natural mind. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, nothing. It was not much. I started reading this book, The Words of My Perfect Teacher, Patrul Rinpoche. And he was saying in the introduction that it was interesting how Albert Einstein considered the teachings of Buddhism to be fulfilling the criteria necessary for a spiritual path for the 20th century, with everything that is going on nowadays in science and all the discoveries and all of that. You just can find it in the teachings of the Buddha. It's all coming together.
Anybody else have a comment? Gary, you got your microphone on. You got something you wanted to bring up?
I didn't realize it was on. I'm glad I didn't. Well, I've mentioned before, in reference to what Adrian alluded to, science is just exploding now, and it's both discovering new vistas and destroying old concepts. I've mentioned biocentrism before. The whole question of what is real is now the subject of active discussion in science, animated discussion in science now, and the world is changing rapidly right before us. I think faster perhaps than it ever has, based on the information that's flowing to us. So, and the Buddha is being validated in so many ways, in my mind. Others may differ, but I think in this group we can see that.
Okay, Michael.
Back to what Adrian said, I think that speaks to a special sort of vision that somebody like Einstein had. I mean, I think Einstein could actually had a vision of like the space within space. He would understand everything that you were talking about as completely potentially explanatory. I think. And I had a question for you. Doesn't teaching this kind of stuff get you so high?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's infectious.
It radiates and is luminous. Yeah.
It's a better high than the old days, isn't it, Lance?
You're in control. There's no hangover. You don't have to go eat a German chocolate cake to satisfy your hunger. And you don't have to pay somebody to bring you your high. Yeah, you're in control, and it's natural. Yeah.
Get high on your own supply.
High on your own supply. That's a great phrase. That's very good.
It's not mine, but.
Oh, okay. See, 30 years ago, I would have made a song out of that. Anybody else, you great thinkers? Tom? Bhavani? Bhavani or Shankar, you have any comment? Are you enjoying it?
It seems as though that the humans are finally catching up to Buddhist science. It's taken us 2,600 years almost. And but we're slowly getting there. I mean, we're not there yet. He still explains some stuff that we're still trying to explain through science, but we're getting there. But that's still holding on to stuff,
Sure.
Just let it all go. Let it all go. One day.
But this is good stuff, isn't it?
Oh, it's great stuff. It makes your makes this mind definitely going, you know. And it's just it's great for discussion, but yeah, it's like you said, it's a high, definitely. It's control, like you said, it's controlled. You can control it. Yeah.
Bhavani, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I'm just finding it very interesting to learn more about the Buddha families and the poisons and the antidotes of it. And I give you a whole lot of credit for trying to put into words things that are concepts and don't always have the words for. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah. And, you know, it's by way of the masters, you know, and we're all grateful, you know, for the teachings. You know, this is the genius of the Buddha and those that come after him, you know, so it's we're tapping into that whole base, you know, is really wonderful.
You think we'll get to the point where we don't need words and can convey just by our experiences?
You mean a smile?
Well, okay, that's a good one.
You mean bright eyes? You mean just happiness?
Yeah.
And
Even with a mask, I see happy eyes on people.
And just being able to be with people and not have to have a running conversation and so on, but just be in the midst with people.
Yes.
You mean like on a retreat?
Okay.
Yeah.
Silent retreat, yes.
Yeah. That's what we're working up to.
Okay. Do any of these colors have anything to do with the colors of the chakras?
Yes. You know, but then again, it's interpretive, you know, so
right.
You have to give a little bit of latitude for culture and so on like that.
Because different schools have different colors for their chakras.
Correct. I have a chakra meditation that I've done with people. As a matter of fact, I did it with you years ago. I think I might have done it with Buddhism 101, and there were color associations with it. And I did this once at a bookstore in Baltimore, and it was a lot of people were there who were, you know, in all different kinds of occultism and stuff like that. And they started getting, you know, upset because my colors didn't jive with the colors that they were used to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I said, well, I can understand your frustration, but, you know, give it a shot. Let go of what you knew before and give us a shot. I'll be more than glad to do it your way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and I can understand that because the color more is corresponding to the activity rather than it's not a given attribute, but it's so
in the Buddhism you're talking about in this philosophy here.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's very practical.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, you know, I like about it because it's very explainable, you know, it's very logical.
Yeah.
If you use your prism, then the color that's produced from the prism is the direction of the energy, you know, the light
but
energy.
Another thing, when you get mad, when you really get mad, what color do you see?
Red.
When you get jealous, what color do you see when you really get jealous and upset and envious?
I guess the bile is getting active as it gets green, huh?
That's right. That's right. You see, there's a whole thing about this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at, you know, all the other things too. You know, the earth is yellow and the water is white. You know, so you can see the space is blue. Why is space blue? Because when we look out at the sky and we look up at the sky, to us, that's, you know, we can say, oh, that's space. You know, if we can go further than that, but they couldn't do that, you know, at night it gets black. you know, and now we can see space and so on, but it connotes a protection. It connotes this all pervasiveness, you know, and the blue speaks to that. You know, when you think of loyalty, when you think of truthfulness, what color do you think of?
Blue.
True blue.
Right. It's kind of open.
True blue. When you think of white, what do you think of white?
Of what?
White.
White.
Yeah, Tom's saying it.
Pure in it.
Pure. Purity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we gave a practical association with each one of those colors right now. That has been inculcated into our culture, hasn't it? You know, by those phrases.
Mm-hmm.
So human beings are spiritual beings, whether they realize it or not. You know, and great artists are letting that come out, you know, whether they're writing books, they're writing stories, they're writing poems, they're painting, you know, they're making music, you know, in different ways. Have you ever listened to music and just imagine the music as color? So there's so many different things we can do, and taking a walk in the woods and hearing things and hearing the different birds and different animals and associating that with colors and so on. You know, you can have a lot of fun with this. Is the enjoyable Sambogo Gaia. You know, the enjoyable mind, subtle and enjoyable mind. The Sambogo Gaia, seeing the way all this manifests. Okay. So thank you all very much for your patience and paying attention to this. This next week, we're going to continue with the retreat with Drupan, which if you tuned in today, I saw that Bhavani and Shankar were there and Tom was there. And I invite you all to come in tomorrow and the rest of the week and so on. Is really, really good. And next week is Losar, is the Lunar New Year. So there'll be some activity with that. So tonight is the last night that we'll be doing any of our Buddhism 101, 102 kind of classes. And so this next week and next week, we're taking off so that we can partake in all these other events and so on. So I'll send a message to everybody reminding them that in 2 weeks, we'll be doing Buddhism 102, and we'll finish up with this everyday consciousness and primordial awareness. We'll look at the 8 great bodhisattvas. And then after that, then we'll start the Noble Film Night. So remember, I talked to you about plugging your computers into your TV. If you can do that, you'll really enjoy the bigger picture.
Nice.
Are you going to get into chakras then?
Not now, no. We can do that another time, but not now.
No.
In fact, that would be something that we would do in Buddhism 201 on Friday night, because that would be a practice, to practice the chakras. So I've got a wonderful practice for that. So we can do that, you know, in the not too distant future.
Do you go through all of them or just the upper chakra?
We go through 5 chakras, but we can talk about 7. We can mention 7, but we'll practice 5. Actually 4.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to talk to you about some of those.
Okay, it'd be my pleasure. All right, so I'll do a quick dedication if you don't mind then, please. So the Dark Karma prayer on page 20 and the Lord Jigdan Sumgun prayer. By the virtues collected into 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikumpa Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lance.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. So we'll take a break. So we won't get back until Thursday a week.
Thank you, Lance.